Hello world, welcome back to the Pocket Gamer podcast with your hosts, me, Brian Baglow, and the always excellent Peggy and Salz. Good afternoon, Peggy, how are you?
I am doing well, Brian, and isn't it great? It's a great time for fresh starts. It's a great time for fresh perspectives, too, I think. We've just had two amazing teams from Innogames talking about how they give games a longer life. So why not take it to the next level, which someone who is looking at how to move the needle through narrative, right? I've never heard of this before. And when I heard about it, I said, that's it. We have to have them on the show. So that's exactly what we're doing. We have someone who's experimented with something she calls narrative marketing. So I'd like to just welcome Deniz Kekeç, Performance Marketing Manager at Innogames. Deniz, it's great to have you. And of course, this is your space. This is narrative marketing, and quite a niche it is.
Yeah, very nice to meet you, Brian, with you, and I knew Peggy.
And I have to say just one thing, because I was doing a little checking and I asked everyone to describe themselves. And I thought it was very interesting that you voluntarily say that you thrive on data-driven strategies that consistently deliver measurable results. And I would say, Brian, we're going to thrive on learning more about narrative marketing. So I think it's a match. I think this was meant to be.
Very clearly. So, Deniz, we've heard from other members of the Innogames team talking about some of the great projects that you have out there from Forge and Tribal Wars, which have just the most incredible legacy and an active community 20 years on. So what are the projects that you're focused on within Innogames?
So yeah, in Innogames, of course, we do have actually 9 live titles at the moment. And some of them are like literally brand games or the big games like Forge of Empires, Tribal Wars. And now we are publishing more games in the last 3 years, which is Rise of Cultures and Sunrise Village. And from my perspective as a marketer, that currently I'm working for Sunrise Village team for the game itself, because last year in the marketing, we decided to have the different marketing teams for dedicated to each game, because of course the environment is challenging. And what we realized, if a marketer is going to understand the product well enough, that then we are going to have more experience and more idea about what kind of user we need to reach through the marketing. And at the moment in Innogames for Sunrise Village, we are working again with the narrative. And now 7 months ago, we launched the desktop version of the Sunrise Village after we see good results on mobile. And at the moment, yeah, we are also focusing on now desktop version of the game to, the help our users to have the fun and the same easiness with the playing as well as in the mobile and desktop.
And that cross-platform benefit as well.
Yeah. Because again, the mobile is very challenging. The increasing user acquisition, right? That it's out of our control. So I guess it was a very good decision for us to extend our game into desktop, because it's also a little bit, the different type of user than we aim with the mobile.
I remembered your talk in October. You were at the UA Society, and I thought, okay, Deniz, I know her. She's cool. But no, you came up and you had a totally different concept. You had your own name for it, which stuck with me. Narrative marketing. So we know product is marketing. We know about engagement marketing. And then you talk about narrative marketing. And then I put it out on social and people are like, wow, what a cool concept. So I guess asking you, since you came up with it, how do you define this? What do you mean when you talk about narrative marketing? Because it is pretty cool. And you can be justifiably proud, I think, to be a pioneer in this as well. So unpack it for us.
Yeah, thank you very much for your good reviews as well. So the narrative marketing mainly is the improving the bonding with the user through giving a good story to them. It is kind of the way of the differentiating your product, because again, let's say for Sunrise Village is the simulation casual game, right? But there are tons of other games in the market, in the App Store, they can also play. But why the Sunrise Village? And that's why we decided to build the story of the game a little bit upfront. So the user, which is mainly the female users, they're going to find themselves, I'm the main character in the game, and that's why I should keep playing, because this male character in the game has a story to figure out and help the other characters in the game. So the mainly narrative marketing is the creating the story or even the building up the existing story in a way the user can bond with the product themselves.
Was that the sort of the primary driver for the game, that relationship building, or were there other aspects that came into the game when it was at the design and development stage?
So the Sunrise Village actually has soft launched 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago actually by now. And we had a very good successful numbers with the soft launch. And we were lucky actually, story was there. So actually they built the product, developed the product with the story in. But of course that we were mostly focusing on the gameplay necessarily, like while we were at least in marketing activities. And then looking at the, other games that also building a huge community based on the story. And I asked our product manager, okay, what is the story for this game? And when they explained it, I was like, wow, why don't we also, because this game is already, we prove like very good retention, very good LTV, but we can even reach more audience if we want to, make Sunrise Village different than our competitors. Of course, also without a good product, it's always challenging. Even if you're gonna find the best working formula for others, if you don't have a well-working existing product, it's gonna be, of course, more challenging. So we have a very great talent of the developers in the Sunrise Village team game, and that's why that trusting the existing numbers of the game, and the product team also supported us, me in the marketing. Okay, then let's put the story upfront with our users, and let's check the chemistry, what they're expecting from the game or from us.
And it's a great way, again, of extending the life of a game. Here you've got a great game, 2 years old, people love it, but you want to extend it, you want to expand it. I'd like to drill a little deeper into that because, of course, that's about understanding what players love. That's an emotion. Tell us what kind of narrative, what kind of story would you relate to? Now, you could, of course, do surveys. That's probably one way. But, you're going deeper. Can you share a little bit about how you decided that narrative? Because that's like the art here. And there's probably not rules for it, but there's probably a great story, pun sort of intended here, story for the storytelling that I'd love you to share.
While working with a product or while working in marketing, it's not important to give what I'm looking for. It's important to give what the user is looking for. So that's why, as you mentioned, actually, before we decided of this specific narrative that is going to work out well for Sunrise Village, we went through quite extensive part of, the data analysis, user analysis, what is the user behavior in the game, what kind of other games that they do play. Even we had the survey, okay, this is the type of story A, this is the type of story B. Which one would you recommend, or which one recommend us to put in the game? So we had quite extensive support from analytics, as you can hear. And then after that, we came up with even 5 concepts. So we were very, delicate about choosing which concept is going to work. Because imagine that doing this project on an existing product, while you already have users, right? And you also don't want to repel the existing user from the product just for the sake of you're going to find the new users for your product, right? So with the analytics support that we came up with first, the 5 different persona. And from these 5 different persona, we understand, okay, these are the personas who is willing to stay in the game more than average, and they also willing to make the purchase or watch the ads, so they are our main source, what they would want from us. And based on that, actually, we built 5 different concepts, and under every concept, we built 3 to 4 different variations, that means 20 new story we provided in the test.
How far could you stretch the narrative of your existing game? I mean, obviously, it's a story in itself. So you can't say, okay, and then we're going to have, undersea monsters or something. That's not going to work because that's way, way out. But how far could you stretch that across those 20 stories? What kind of choice made sense for you because it made sense for the player?
So I can maybe give an example. It's going to be easier for me to explain. Let's say we had one concept about the relationships. romantic relationship. So our main character is Alice in the game, right? And we decide, okay, one concept should be love relationship. But what kind of love relationship? That could be the one case Alice had a breakup and moved to the Sunrise Village, support her grandpa. This is one variation under this love relationship concept. Another one, the Alice still has a breakup, but then moves to Sunrise Village and meets someone else. So it's the ignite of the new love romantic relationship in the village. And the other one, this woman is just single, has no breakup, and strong woman, and he's just going to go to Sunrise Village to support her grandfather. So because as you can see, especially as a woman, these are the small differences, but it just triggers different part in you once you are watching the edit.
So which one won?
Well, actually, love relationship that we realized that in concept, it didn't pick it up overall super well. So I can tell you in the end of our talk that which actual concept won as well.
Okay.
Oh, now that's smart. That's very smart. She's going to keep us all the way through to the end of the podcast before we find out.
Find out the winner. Yes.
Denise, this is next level.
Yeah, actually, I'm just telling busy, but I was just preparing for the podcast.
So I have to ask, just to pick up on that, Denise, how on earth did you test that? Was it down to, installs and engagement, or, how did you did you do any sentiment or emotional analysis with players? Because that's quite a tough thing to test.
Yes, so the first thing, again, that's an existing product. That means we were running existing accounts almost 2 years, right? So as a marketing person, that I never run my tests in an existing ad account. So for us, for the creative test, what comes to your mind? Meta first, at least for me, that I was very capable of using Meta for years. So I was like, that's my platform. Give me the creatives. I'm going to have a test. But first thing what I've done is I created a new account with no history behind it. So, because with the algorithm, after running some default creatives, sometimes that might be an issue, like it's just the existing creative or the historical best performing creatives are still going to pick up, because these new videos, how we are going to benchmark them with our historical best performance, right? So I need to still add the best performance too. So what I done, creating a new ad account in Meta on Android, and I created the six different campaigns, and each campaign has one concept. So let's say love relationship is one. The other one, I don't know, sci-fi. And another campaign was the historical best performer. And I just ran the campaigns against each other, actually, and just to try to see, okay, which one is performing well. And what I do talk about while I'm talking about performance, I had like 3 main KPIs in my mind. First is the traction. If I can spend, because if I can't spend with the new stories, then we don't need to even look at the rest of the data, because it's not going to be significant. And after traction, IPM. So I'm honestly, with CPM and CPI, I was very cautious, because sometimes you can pay very high CPI, but the value you're getting from that it can be very good, and then you're going to still end up profitable, right? So CPM is important, but for me, the IPM was the most important one in the upper funnel, to see what is the click-through rate, what is the conversion rate. So when users see the ad, do they click on the ad, and then do they install the game, right? So that was the one. And the later aspect, which was a little bit like mid-funnel retention 1 and retention 3, that I was comparing versus default, just to understand if the game is too far from the story, like let's say I do see the love relationship ad, I click the ad, I downloaded the game, but then when I start to playing game, I'm gonna be like, it has nothing to do with the advertisement, so I'm just gonna stop playing the game. So retention that's why important, because we didn't want to do something too different than what we have in the game, considering our existing user base.
Drilling down a little bit more in those results, those are the KPIs you were looking at, and that's really good to know them, because now we have a blueprint and we know which ones you were focused on. So that tells us which ones to focus on, but you still have to sort of be rigorous in this testing. This is not A/B testing, creatives, plain vanilla stuff. This is deeper. This is more rich, as it were. what does that require? Because you're still looking at one factor, but it's so nuanced. It's not A/B testing the way you just say, oh, it's this icon versus that icon.
So the A/B testing. So just to maybe going step back to how we figure out the concepts, right? So because I work with product team very closely, I work with the analytics team very closely, but one of the main reasons that the product team and marketing team work together, because again, let's say we have this store, right? Can they integrate that story? Let's say we see the very good results and we realize that our users expect more from us to, have this story more if it's integratable. So it's very important to understand. That's why it's not an A/B test, okay, this is the creative and this is the creative and just choose the winner. After we had even winner, we had another talks. Okay, how we can integrate that in the game, or how long is going to take? Because if it's going to take too much, of course, the product team has a lot to do, on their side too. So we try to understand that if this concept can spend and can get the good feedback from our users, or if we can reach the new users, and also if it's integratable to the game, because otherwise it's going to be you're gonna promise something to user and what they're gonna end up that maybe it's not gonna be what they're expecting, right? So that's why I really agree with you that it's not the A/B test. It is something that you are very, very deep diving while you're thinking.
Well, in the long term, it comes back to your own credibility as a studio, as a publisher, because if you're just, serving the audience something that is going to be popular, but it's not building that credibility, that relationship, then you're really pulling the rug out from under their feet.
So I believe we had a very good job as a Sunrise Village team with that. But honestly, I wouldn't see that in a way that, we are the best at it, because as Peggy mentioned, this is a very new area for mobile gaming, right? And I do start to see even more examples from other companies as well too. I'm so confident. I'm so happy that we, start to the seeds of this narrative marketing title through Sunrise Village at Innogames. And yeah, and that was again very successful from our perspective. So we are also considering this for other games too, for other existing games too, and hopefully just putting the seed, and also we can even come up with the more updated version of this project for in the future for our new games.
Amazing. So, Deniz, can we drill into what you learned over this whole process? Let's have a little exploration of what were the key learnings. Maybe what were the surprises that you found across this whole process?
It was challenging for us to find the creative that is going to work with different UA channels. So the initial test was with Meta, right? And once we proved that, but now we had to adapt this strategy, this winning creative, which is the mystery one, to different UA channels, because we are spending quite a month with so many partners, and we want to make sure this narrative is going to work with different channels. And it was a little trickier than I thought, because again, that imagine in marketing, 1 out of 20 creatives can work. So every time when my, the creative team provides 20 creatives to us, that means that we can just find one winner. Like this is just the overall proportion. So that's why I was a little bit more optimistic to figure out, okay, what, we already have the winner. I guess we're going to find the best match for the other UA channels easier too. But it was more of a test. Okay, it does work, it doesn't work. And then, okay, retest again, another variation. So that was a little surprising part. Again, that might be my over optimism in the beginning of the project. So that would, one of even my key learnings, that this project requires a time. It requires the time, it requires people and effort.
What you're saying is that because each channel, each acquisition source has its sort of own audience and its sort of own thing going on, that you couldn't necessarily say, this is the winning concept, this is the winning narrative, and we'll just put it there. You had to then readapt it, is what I'm hearing, I think I'm hearing, to the actual channel. So it's like, this is the way people are on Meta, as opposed to maybe, I don't know, TikTok or whatever else you're using. So that was just that extra step that took a little bit longer and took some more testing.
Yeah, you're completely right. Let's say UCG, right? The mystery video was more like how to say the animation that like you are putting, and of course in Meta Newsfeed, it just pops up because it was like a trailer. But then how you're gonna put that on TikTok, let's say, right? You need to figure out how we can deliver the story while keeping the standards that partner requires from us, right? So, or statics, how you're gonna convey the story through statics, right? So again, I was so lucky to work with so many talented people also in the creative team, and they were like, okay, you know what, this can give the idea of the story we want to deliver to user, or we went through a lot of competitor benchmarks, what they're using, or what if there is any insight that we can get. So it took a little bit longer than I thought initially, this process.
So what can we ask you to give our listeners, our audience out there who are interested, who are hearing about narrative marketing and thinking, actually, this might be something that we want to try and experiment with? How do they get started? How do you set their expectations, and how do they convince, the senior management this is worth exploring?
First thing I can recommend is start even building a narrative while you're developing the product. So because it's going to be easier, because there is so many also people who's involving in initial, let's say initial retention tests or the CPI test. I guess it's important to check the pulse before while you are already developing the game, because again, it was, for instance, we were thinking about if the story is going to be integratable in the game, right? It's just extra effort on top of on the existing product. So, but I would say that if you want to run this test, that start from the day zero of while you're building the product. While you're building the product, define your persona. Like it doesn't have to be one; it can be, of course, multiple. And define your persona and check with them or check with your even the user research analyst. Okay, so is it this type of narrative that would work with our persona, or even if story would work with the persona? So that would be my first recommendation. Start while you're even developing the product, so it's gonna work smoother and faster, definitely. And the secondly, of course, it's not always the chance, right? That sometimes people joins the companies while the product there, or sometimes like it doesn't work that smooth. And what you're gonna do while if you want to run the narrative project on an existing product, then what I would recommend as well, check CPI and LTV balance already in your game. What do I mean? For instance, with the narrative creatives or the stories, we did observe also higher CPI. Yeah, we did observe like 30 to 40% increase in retention LTV, yes, but we did also see higher CPIs, like 10%, around 10%. Our IPM was very strong, but CPM was very strong too, like on the higher band. Make sure that for your existing product that you do have the CPI LTV balance, like, your CPI is not going to sacrifice too much compared to your LTV. So this calculation is very important. So how to convince let's say the C-level, I would say if you believe the product has a strong connection with the user, and if there's a good story that you can just ramp it up, with within the marketing, and if you trust your existing KPIs in the game, again, okay, I'm okay to pay extra 10% for each install, but you know what? I'm gonna get 30% more LTV. So, or higher retention. Of course, it's business as usual that you can't see the future, but you can at least, measure what to expect or different scenarios even.
Marketers ask me sometimes as well, what should I settle for? And that's interesting because I'm not a marketer, but they think I talk to a lot of marketers. So I'm going to ask you the question as well, which is, you have to be very clear about what you want, but there's like a level of how do you think in this challenging environment, because we know CPRs are going to be a little bit, it's not a bargain. Let's just put it that way. But we know we're going to get a payoff in engagement, and that really matters. But do you have any rule of thumb for like, what should I settle for? How can I compromise on the great CPIs I'd love to have? How much leverage, how much flexibility should be there? Because you don't want to short sell yourself, and you certainly don't want level coming down on you. Maybe there's a rule of thumb you could share or something, because that's what you have to deal with. That's the reality of it.
Maybe I'm just going to repeat myself, but for me, IPMs, that I mean, user willingness to, that click on that ad, again, just based on the project that or the test schema that we ran, the user's willingness to see that ad and download that product or the game and, like keep using it. I guess the IPM is very, very good determinator. I don't think that anymore that the successful project in marketing necessarily means lower CPI. So at least this is my perspective, because the inflation rate on CPIs are higher than the economy these days.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yes.
so that's why that understanding your user's signal, that if they are interested in that, I would say deep dive on there. There's something in your user wants from you, that just check on there. Or again, you can also share with your community channels. If you have existing social media platforms, let's say you can run an example event. And if you're going to see, very high CPIs, to just double check before you move forward.
So we're going to have to start to bring it to a close, but I'm just going to shift the focus to you as a person, Deniz, because everyone's more than a title. You certainly as well, because it's about understanding the organization. And we've proven to us, you've shown again, product and marketing work together. They have to work together in perfect harmony, but that shouldn't be too bad or too hard for you, rather, because you are also a qualified yoga teacher, which is pretty cool. So tell us about how you bring that together. You draw from this skill set, from this mindset, from this vibe, and make it work in your organization. There's got to be some great lessons for our audience there.
It's the yoga teacher that it was actually during COVID that I decided to get that certificate because I'm so into sport since my, I don't know, like very young age. And knowing the anatomy, knowing your body. So that was my initial idea. But exactly that I get quite the benefits also in my professional life. Sometimes, let's say, while you're talking with the people that of course, there's always the back and forth conversation, putting yourself in the other's shoes while they are telling this specific thing to you, like I'm not even talking about, that taking things like, okay, what they're telling me, this is okay, then I'm just going to accept it as it is. But no, just try to dive into the other person's shoes and why they're requiring from me, let's say, that KPI. And from their perspective and from my expertise, then I try to, if I have negotiation balance, then I try to negotiate on that. I see, let's say, you're offering me this as let's say, the KPI, but let's discuss the other options. So understanding the other person recommendations or the expectations from you, from their perspective, and try to answer them a little bit in their language, maybe, because everyone wants the same thing. Successful product. So I guess we are all aligned on this. It's just sometimes we are doing different works, right? Like it's very hard for me to grasp how much effort the creative team or the product team is putting versus how much effort we are putting, for everything in marketing. So it's putting yourself into other person's place and look at yourself, like also what you're promising. Let's say I can provide this KPI, but is it really what I can do? Am I just overselling it or am I underselling it? So finding this balance and try to understand also the other's perspective, especially if you are doing multi-department project.
That's why I love where we are. I mean, I look at the different side of it and I say, yes, I know it is difficult, but we are focusing now on the game. We're focusing on the story. We're focusing on the player and the passion, which is where it actually was when it all started. And then here we are swinging back, but at a much, much different level. So I need to ask you, how'd the game turn out? What won here? Because now you got me going. I'm gonna have to check it out, to be quite honest. But what won? What was the winning narrative?
Yeah, it was actually the mystery, Mr. Creative. So in the story that we had some surprises about the grandpa in the game. Normally it reveals a little bit in the later chapters, and that we put that secret about grandpa, again giving no secret to audience, and then Alice is just finding herself in a this family situation that she discovers new thing about her grandpa. The video creative, actually, it was like, not that colorful, it was more on like the black white tones. And I was surprised to see actually female audience was like into that, for the game. But maybe it's the, a little bit, not the soap opera, but, a little bit of drama, unknown things. I guess it was enough to captivating the user on a different level.
Now, before you go, there are 2 questions we ask all of our guests, and it kind of brings it back and grounds it within the world of games. What are you playing right now? What's kind of obsessing you? What's eating up your time when you're not working or, engaged in your yoga practice? And 2, what's your favorite game of all time?
So even though I'm working in a mobile gaming industry, actually, I'm a console game player, PlayStation player. So
that's okay. There are no wrong answers.
So at the moment, I'm playing Rise of Lara Croft, actually, and it's quite how to say, taking you inside of the game. And I do also like this female leading, female saving the world type of game. So at the moment, I am playing Rise of Lara Croft. Apart from Lara Croft, but if my top game, I guess I would say again, I do have some emotional connection with Assassin's Creed because it was the first game that I played when I was 16 years old. So that game is gonna always have some special place in my heart. But again, emotional connection. Even though like first Assassin's Creed that I'm talking, like it's like not everything is, at its best. So I guess I would say that would be the best game. Because of the Assassin's Creed right now also, I'm in actual gaming industry, on different, area.
That brings us to a fabulous conclusion. Deniz, we can't thank you enough for coming along and joining us, sharing all your insight and telling our audience about narrative marketing. We really do appreciate it. So until the next time, hopefully, thanks again. And we hope to see you soon.
Big +1 from my side as well. And I really, really appreciate you not just telling us about narrative marketing, but also telling us enough about it that our listeners, our audience can experiment as well. So that was really helpful. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
This show is all about how to do your job better, how to make an amazing game, how to market it, and you have a say. So if you have a story or know someone we need to shine a light on, then we would love to hear from you.
We want to hear from you. We want to reflect the reality of the mobile games market in all its wonderful complexity and strangeness. So if you have any suggestions for us, if you have any feedback for us, you can always get in touch. You can email us at podcast@pocketgamer.biz. You can find us on Twitter @PGBiz, and you can reach out to us through the pocketgamer.biz website. If you're interested in listening to all of our podcasts, you can find them at pocketgamer.biz/podcast, and we would love to hear your thoughts on future shows.
And we've got you covered on all the major platforms, so subscribe to the audio podcast, as Brian said. Look for us on YouTube. If you want to read it, hey, you can do that too, because we have a companion post for you as well on the pocketgamer.biz website.
Tune in again for the next edition of the pocketgamer.biz podcast, and we look forward to speaking to you in the near future. Until then, I'm Brian Baglow.
I'm Peggy Salz, and that's a wrap until next week.